Imagine a world where thunder gods challenge each other across frozen mountains, where ancient forests whisper the names of forgotten spirits, and where warriors, witches, monsters, and divine kings gather for the ultimate clash between two of the most mysterious mythological traditions in Europe. Tonight, we are diving deep into one of the greatest fantasy matchups imaginable: Slavic mythology versus Norse mythology. Which pantheon would dominate in war? Which gods are stronger? Which creatures are more terrifying? Which mythology has the darker worldview, the deadlier magic, and the more unstoppable destiny? This is not just a battle between gods, it is a battle between entire universes of belief, fear, chaos, and power. To understand who would win, we first need to understand the worlds these mythologies came from. Norse mythology emerged from the harsh landscapes of Scandinavia, Iceland, and the Germanic North.
This was a world of icy oceans, brutal winters, raiders, warriors, and survival against impossible odds. The Norse gods reflected this reality. Their stories are violent, tragic, heroic, and obsessed with fate. Even the gods know they will eventually die during Ragnarok, the final battle at the end of time. Slavic mythology, on the other hand, developed across vast forests, rivers, plains, and mountains, stretching from Eastern Europe into Russia and the Balkans. The Slavic world was deeply connected to nature, spirits, cycles of life and death, agriculture, and hidden magic. Slavic mythology feels older in some ways, less organized than the Norse pantheon, more mysterious and fragmented because much of it was destroyed or transformed after Christianization. Yet what survives reveals a terrifying and beautiful mythological system filled with shape-shifting beings, dark forests, underworld spirits, and gods that embody the raw forces of nature itself. If we compare the overall mood of the two mythologies,
Norse mythology feels like a world marching toward apocalypse. Slavic mythology feels like a living wilderness where danger hides everywhere. One is a cosmic battlefield, the other is an enchanted nightmare forest. But now comes the question everyone wants answered. If these two mythological worlds collided, who would win? Let us begin with the rulers of the heavens. In Norse mythology, the supreme god is Odin, the All-Father. Odin is not simply a king. He is a seeker of forbidden knowledge, a master strategist, a magician, a god of war, poetry, death, prophecy, and wisdom. He sacrificed his eye to drink from the well of wisdom. He hung himself upon Yggdrasil, the world tree, for 9 days and nights to gain the secrets of the runes. He commands the Valkyries, gathers dead warriors in Valhalla, and constantly prepares for Ragnarok. Odin is terrifying not because of brute strength alone, but because of intelligence. He manipulates gods and mortals alike. He can see into the future. He uses deception, curses, magic, and prophecy as weapons. In many ways, Odin is less like a traditional sky god and more like an eldritch king obsessed with delaying the end of the universe. Facing Odin on the Slavic side would most likely be Perun, the great thunder god. Perun rules storms, lightning, war, mountains, oak trees, and heavenly order. He is usually imagined wielding axes or hammers of lightning, riding across the sky like a divine warrior. Perun is often compared to Thor because both are thunder gods, but Perun may actually stand higher in the Slavic hierarchy. Perun's eternal enemy is Veles, the serpent-like god of the underworld, magic, cattle, chaos, and trickery. Their cosmic conflict defines the balance of the Slavic universe. Every storm is seen as Perun battling Veles across the heavens. So who wins between Odin and Perun? In raw combat, Perun may actually have the advantage. He is a direct force of destruction, a god whose lightning devastates monsters and demons. But Odin does not fight fairly. Odin manipulates reality itself through satyr magic, prophetic knowledge, and psychological warfare. Odin would likely avoid direct confrontation while engineering an elaborate strategy to weaken Perun. Yet Perun is not naive. As a god of cosmic order and divine authority, he represents stability against chaos. Odin thrives in uncertainty and sacrifice. Perun thrives in overwhelming divine force. This battle would likely become symbolic of the entire war between Norse and Slavic mythology. The Norse side values cunning, fate, sacrifice, and preparation. The Slavic side represents primal power, natural cycles, and elemental dominance. Now let us move to perhaps the most famous Norse god of all, Thor. Thor is the hammer-wielding protector of gods and humanity. He crushes giants with Mjolnir, controls thunder, and possesses nearly unmatched physical strength. Unlike Odin, Thor is straightforward. He does not manipulate or deceive. He fights. Thor's greatest strength is not only power, but endurance. He survives impossible battles against world-ending beings. He once nearly drank the ocean dry during a challenge created by illusions. He wrestled old age itself. He fishes for Jormungandr, the world serpent, and nearly destroys it. Thor is essentially the ultimate frontline warrior. But who opposes Thor from Slavic mythology? Again, Perun becomes the obvious answer, though some traditions blur distinctions between thunder gods and warrior gods. The clash between Thor and Perun would be legendary. Lightning against lightning, hammer against axe, storm against storm. Thor possesses incredible feats preserved in detailed sagas. Slavic mythology, sadly, lost many of its stories over time. That means Norse mythology often appears more developed and cinematic because more texts survived. Still, based on surviving traditions, Perun is no lesser deity. In some interpretations, Perun represents the actual structure of divine law in the heavens. Thor is a champion. Perun is cosmic authority. In pure combat, Thor may hold a slight edge due to the sheer amount of legendary feats attributed to him. But the fight would devastate worlds. Imagine Mjolnir colliding with Perun's lightning axe, while storms tear apart mountains and oceans boil beneath them. And then there is Veles. Veles is one of the most fascinating figures in Slavic mythology because he is not purely evil. He is associated with the underworld, wealth, cattle, magic, poetry, trickery, serpents, and hidden knowledge. He is often portrayed as a dragon or serpent opposing Perun. Immediately, comparisons arise with Loki. But Loki and Veles are not the same. Loki is chaos personified. He causes disasters, manipulates gods, creates monsters, and eventually becomes one of the central forces behind Ragnarok. Loki's children include Fenrir, Jormungandr, and Hel herself. Veles, meanwhile, feels older and more naturalistic. He is not simply malicious chaos. He is the underworld force necessary for balance. Without Veles, Perun's order becomes meaningless. In a confrontation between Loki and Veles, things become extremely unpredictable. Loki is cunning beyond measure, but Veles controls realms tied to death, wealth, and magic. Loki thrives on destruction. Veles thrives on transformation. One could argue that Veles is actually more dangerous because he represents an entire underworld ecosystem. Loki is catastrophic, but often personal in his chaos. Veles embodies the hidden dangers of nature itself. However, Loki's ability to manipulate even gods into catastrophe cannot be underestimated. He repeatedly engineers situations that spiral beyond anyone's control. If Loki and Veles formed an alliance instead of fighting each other, the Norse and Slavic universes might collapse entirely. But mythology is not only about gods. It is also about monsters. And this is where things become truly terrifying. Norse mythology contains some of the most iconic monsters in human history. Fenrir, the giant wolf destined to kill Odin. Jormungandr, the serpent so enormous it wraps around the world. Hel, ruler of the dead. The frost giants, fire giants. Draugr, undead warriors. Nidhogg, gnawing at the roots of reality itself. Norse monsters feel apocalyptic. They threaten existence on a cosmic scale. Slavic mythology, however, specializes in horror. The Leshy stalks forests, shapeshifting and leading travelers to their doom. Baba Yaga lives in a hut standing on chicken legs deep in the woods, devouring or testing those who approach. The Rusalka lures victims into lakes and rivers. Koschei the Deathless hides his soul outside his body, making him nearly impossible to kill. Vampires in many forms emerged from Slavic folklore long before modern fiction transformed them. The difference is fascinating. Norse monsters destroy worlds. Slavic monsters invade everyday life. A Norse monster arrives like a natural disaster. A Slavic monster waits for you in the dark forest outside your village. Who would win between them? Fenrir versus Koschei the Deathless would be horrifying. Fenrir represents unstoppable destruction. Koshchei represents immortality through forbidden magic. If Fenrir cannot destroy the hidden object containing Koshchei's soul, Koshchei may simply keep returning. Jormungandr versus Velis would become a serpent war of cosmic proportions. One encircles the world itself, the other rules the underworld and transforms into dragon-like forms. But perhaps the most terrifying matchup would involve Baba Yaga. Baba Yaga is difficult to classify because she is not just a witch. She is an ancient force of nature. Sometimes she helps heroes. Sometimes she devours them. Sometimes she tests them morally. She exists beyond simple good and evil. Could even Odin outsmart Baba Yaga? Possibly. But Baba Yaga operates according to strange magical rules. She represents the terrifying wisdom hidden within nature and death. Her hut moves. Her magic bends reality. She flies through the night in a mortar while wielding a pestle. In many ways, Baba Yaga feels more like something from cosmic horror than fantasy. Now let us compare the afterlife systems. Norse mythology divides the dead among multiple realms. Valhalla houses glorious warriors chosen by Odin. Folkvangr receives others chosen by Freya. Helheim receives many ordinary dead. The dead continue existing in preparation for cosmic events. Slavic mythology possesses a more fluid and spirit-centered afterlife. Ancestors remain deeply connected to the living world. Spirits haunt forests, homes, rivers, and burial places. Death is not a final separation, but part of a continuous interaction between worlds. This gives Slavic mythology a ghostly atmosphere that Norse mythology lacks. Norse death feels heroic. Slavic death feels haunting. And that changes how each mythology approaches power. The Norse seek glory because doom is inevitable. The Slavs seek balance because spirits are always near. This psychological difference affects their gods and creatures profoundly. Now we must discuss magic. Norse magic is heavily tied to runes, prophecy, fate, and satyr. Odin's mastery of satyr allows him to influence minds, predict events, and manipulate reality. Freya also commands powerful magic. Magic in Norse mythology often comes with sacrifice. Knowledge requires pain. Slavic magic is more organic and animistic. Forests, rivers, animals, and spirits all possess hidden power. Witches, sorcerers, and shapeshifters interact constantly with unseen forces. Slavic magic feels less structured and more dangerous. A Norse magician studies forbidden knowledge. A Slavic witch makes bargains with the woods. Which system is stronger? Norse magic may be more strategically powerful in warfare and prophecy. Slavic magic may be more adaptable and mysterious. If Odin and Baba Yaga entered a magical duel, the battle might become incomprehensible to mortal minds. Runes burning across the sky, forests twisting into living nightmares, the dead whispering from beneath frozen ground, the fabric of reality unraveling around them. But there is another factor often ignored: civilization. The Norse gods live in highly defined realms connected by Yggdrasil, Asgard, Midgard, Jotunheim, Muspelheim, Niflheim. Their universe is structured like a cosmic empire. Slavic mythology is less centralized. It spreads across forests, rivers, mountains, villages, and hidden spirit realms. This means the Norse pantheon might initially appear more organized in war. Odin commands armies. Thor protects worlds. The Valkyries gather the dead. The Slavic world, however, fights differently. Its power emerges from everywhere. Every river may hide spirits, every forest may contain monsters, every abandoned house may hold dangerous entities. Invading the Slavic mythological world would feel like entering a living trap. And this brings us to one of the most important questions. Who has the better warriors? The Norse answer is obvious: the Einherjar. These are elite dead warriors training endlessly in Valhalla for Ragnarok. They fight every day and resurrect every evening. They are essentially immortal soldiers preparing for the apocalypse. The Slavic side lacks a single equivalent force, but compensates through terrifying supernatural beings. Revenants, vampires, cursed warriors, shapeshifters, witches, and spirit creatures create a battlefield where danger comes from every direction. A direct military confrontation might initially favor the Norse, but a prolonged conflict deep within Slavic lands would become a nightmare of ambushes, curses, hauntings, and psychological terror. Imagine Viking warriors marching confidently into endless forests, only to discover the trees themselves moving around them. The Leshy imitates voices. Rusalki drags soldiers beneath black water. Ancient spirits infect dreams. Baba Yaga watches from the shadows. Even victory becomes impossible because the environment itself is alive. This difference reflects historical realities. The Norse worldview developed among seafarers and raiders confronting external threats. The Slavic worldview developed within immense forests and agricultural communities dependent upon seasonal cycles and unseen natural forces. Thus, Norse mythology externalizes conflict. Slavic mythology internalizes it. One fights giants, the other fears what waits beyond the trees. Now let us explore cosmology. Norse cosmology is incredibly detailed. The 9 realms exist around Yggdrasil, the world tree connecting all existence. Time itself moves toward Ragnarok. This gives Norse mythology a powerful narrative direction. Everything is heading toward the end. Even the gods cannot escape destiny. Slavic cosmology is more fragmented due to lost sources. But what survives suggests a universe deeply interconnected between sky, earth, underworld, spirits, and cyclical transformation. The Norse universe is linear. The Slavic universe is cyclical. This matters enormously. In Norse mythology, death is part of an approaching apocalypse. In Slavic mythology, death feeds back into life and spirit. Therefore, the Norse may fight harder because they know doom is inevitable. But the Slavic forces may prove harder to permanently destroy because they are woven into the eternal cycles of nature itself. Now we need to talk about fear. Which mythology is scarier? Norse mythology inspires existential dread. The universe will end. The gods will die. Monsters will consume creation. Even heroes cannot truly win. Slavic mythology inspires primal fear. Do not enter the forest. Do not trust the river at night. Do not speak carelessly near the dead. Do not ignore ancient rituals. Something may already be watching. These are different types of horror. Norse mythology asks, what happens when destiny destroys everything? Slavic mythology asks, what hidden things already surround us? For modern audiences, Slavic mythology often feels eerier because it resembles folk horror. Its monsters invade ordinary life. Norse mythology feels grander and more epic. It resembles cosmic tragedy. Now let us imagine the ultimate war. The skies split open above ancient forests. The Bifrost burns across dark clouds. Odin arrives with the Einherjar. Thor's hammer shakes mountains. Fenrir snarls beneath blood-red moons. Across the forests, Perun summons storms. Veles rises from the underworld. The Leshy awaken. Rusalki emerge from rivers. Baba Yaga's hut walks through the trees. Koshchei smiles because death cannot touch him. At first, the Norse advance successfully. Their warriors are disciplined. Thor annihilates monsters with terrifying force. Odin predicts enemy movements. The Valkyries dominate the skies, but slowly the environment changes. Forests become labyrinths. Soldiers vanish. Nightmares spread. Magic infects reality. The Slavic world itself resists conquest. Then the true chaos begins. Loki betrays someone, perhaps everyone. Veles manipulates the dead. Baba Yaga strikes bargains with desperate warriors. Fenrir breaks loose. Perun unleashes endless storms. Jormungandr poisons rivers. And Odin realizes something horrifying. This war cannot truly end, because unlike the Norse universe moving toward Ragnarok, the Slavic mythological world constantly regenerates through cycles of life, death, and spirit. Even if the Norse gods win battles, the forests continue whispering. The spirits continue returning. The dead never fully leave. And yet the Norse possess one terrifying advantage. They are willing to die. Norse mythology glorifies heroic sacrifice, unlike almost any mythology on Earth. Its gods know they are doomed, yet fight anyway. That mentality creates unstoppable warriors. Thor knowingly confronts Jormungandr, despite understanding he will die. Tyr sacrifices his hand. Odin sacrifices himself for wisdom. The Norse worldview transforms death into purpose. Could the Slavic pantheon counter such fanatic determination? Possibly. But psychologically, the Norse may possess greater resilience during apocalypse-level warfare. However, there is another perspective. Maybe Slavic mythology would ultimately outlast Norse mythology because it is less centralized. Kill Odin, and Asgard collapses. Kill Thor, and cosmic protection weakens. But Slavic mythology spreads power among countless spirits, rituals, creatures, and natural forces. It behaves more like an ecosystem. An ecosystem is difficult to destroy. This becomes even clearer when we compare specific supernatural beings. Take the Draugr from Norse mythology. These undead beings guard treasures, possess immense strength, and spread terror. Now compare them with Slavic vampires. The Draugr are physical horrors. Slavic vampires are spiritual corruption itself. They infect communities, drain life, and blur the line between living and dead. The Norse create battlefield monsters. The Slavs create nightmares hiding among humans. Then consider giants. Norse giants are primordial forces rivaling gods themselves. Frost giants and fire giants threaten existence. Slavic mythology lacks the same emphasis on giant races, but compensates with supernatural ambiguity. In Slavic folklore, almost anything may secretly possess power. A grandmother, a traveler, a river spirit, a black dog at midnight. This uncertainty creates paranoia, and paranoia is a weapon. Now let us discuss heroes. Norse mythology celebrates legendary warriors like Sigurd, Beowulf in related Germanic tradition, and countless saga heroes. These figures confront dragons, monsters, curses, and impossible odds. Slavic mythology contains bogatirs and folk heroes such as Ilya Muromets, Dobrynya Nikitic, and others who battle dragons, witches, and supernatural enemies. The difference again lies in tone. Norse heroes embrace doomed glory. Slavic heroes survive through endurance, cleverness, and magical assistance. One charges into destiny. The other navigates dangerous worlds. If we compare dragon mythology, the Norse dragon Fafnir becomes iconic as a symbol of greed and corruption. Slavic dragons, however, often possess multiple heads and connections to storms, magic, and chaos. Zmej Gorynych, for example, is a terrifying dragon of fire and destruction. Could Thor defeat Slavic dragons? Almost certainly. Could Slavic heroes defeat Fenrir? Probably not. This reveals an important truth. Norse mythology excels at scale. Slavic mythology excels at atmosphere. The Norse universe creates cosmic threats. The Slavic universe creates intimate terror. So which is stronger depends on the battlefield. In open war, the Norse gods may dominate. In haunted wilderness and spiritual corruption, the Slavic world becomes nearly unbeatable. But we have not yet explored perhaps the most important element of all, humanity. How do humans relate to these mythologies? In Norse mythology, humans exist within an honorable struggle against inevitable destruction. Courage matters more than survival. In Slavic mythology, humans must maintain harmony with dangerous, unseen forces. Rituals, traditions, and respect protect communities from chaos. Thus, Norse mythology inspires warriors. Slavic mythology inspires caution. One says, fight the darkness. The other says, respect the darkness. And perhaps that distinction determines the outcome. Because the Norse gods constantly challenge fate itself, the Slavic powers often embody fate. Now imagine Ragnarok invading Slavic mythology. The sky burns, the dead march. Fenrir devours suns. Jormungandr poisons oceans. Surtur ignites the world with fire. Would the Slavic mythological ecosystem survive? Possibly. Forests regrow, spirits return, cycles continue. The Norse apocalypse destroys linearly. The Slavic worldview regenerates cyclically. This creates an extraordinary paradox. The Norse may win the war. The Slavic world may survive the aftermath. And survival matters. Yet the Norse gods are not merely warriors. They are symbols of humanity confronting doom with dignity. That emotional power gives Norse mythology incredible cultural impact. Even modern audiences feel inspired by Thor standing against impossible odds. Slavic mythology affects audiences differently. It unsettles, it whispers, it creates lingering unease. You do not simply watch Baba Yaga, you remember her. and that psychological influence becomes another form of victory. Now let us compare divine weapons. Mjolnir is perhaps the most famous mythological weapon in Europe. It returns to Thor's hand, channels thunder, and crushes giants effortlessly. Odin's spear Gungnir never misses its target. The sword Gram kills dragons. Norse artifacts feel legendary and heroic. Slavic mythology features magical swords, cursed objects, hidden souls, enchanted animals, and supernatural relics, but often with stranger rules. Koschei's immortality hidden inside nested objects is one of the greatest examples of mythological magical logic. To kill him, heroes must locate a needle hidden within an egg inside a duck, inside a hare, inside a chest hidden far away. This sounds bizarre, yet it reflects deep symbolic storytelling. Slavic magic rarely works directly. It twists reality through layered mysteries. Norse magic punches through obstacles. Slavic magic hides behind them. And that again reflects their cultural identities. Now consider the role of women in both mythologies. Norse mythology contains powerful female figures like Freya, Frigg, Hel, and the Valkyries. Women possess prophecy, magic, authority, and deadly influence. Slavic mythology is filled with witches, spirit women, rusalki, goddesses, and ancient feminine forces tied to nature and fate. Baba Yaga alone may rival entire pantheons in symbolic power. The feminine supernatural presence feels especially strong in Slavic traditions. The forest itself often behaves like a living feminine mystery. This creates a different balance of power. Norse mythology often emphasizes kings, warriors, and cosmic battles. Slavic mythology emphasizes hidden wisdom, domestic rituals, fertility, death, and dangerous feminine magic. Therefore, if the battle became purely military, Norse mythology gains advantage. If the battle becomes spiritual or psychological, Slavic mythology becomes terrifyingly effective. Now let us ask a difficult question. Which mythology has the stronger fate system? The Norse Norns weave destiny itself. Even Odin cannot fully escape fate. Ragnarok is unavoidable. Slavic mythology possesses fate spirits and supernatural destiny figures as well, though less systematically preserved. But Slavic mythology often allows greater fluidity. Through rituals, magic, bargains, and spiritual negotiation, outcomes can sometimes shift. Norse fate feels absolute. Slavic fate feels negotiable. In warfare, absolute fate creates fearless determination. Negotiable fate creates adaptability. Again, neither side completely dominates. Now let us move into symbolism. Thor represents protection. Perun represents heavenly authority. Odin represents sacrifice for wisdom. Veles represents the hidden underworld beneath civilization. Loki represents destabilizing chaos. Baba Yaga represents transformation through terror. Fenrir represents inevitable destruction. Koschei represents unnatural immortality. When we analyze mythological battles, symbolic meaning matters as much as raw power. Could Fenrir physically destroy Baba Yaga? Perhaps. But can destruction itself overcome ancient transformative wisdom? Not necessarily. Could Odin defeat Veles? Maybe. But can calculated strategy truly eliminate the primal underworld hidden beneath reality? Again, not necessarily. This is why mythological comparisons become so fascinating. The stories represent human fears and hopes more than statistics. Norse mythology answers the fear of annihilation. Slavic mythology answers the fear of the unknown. Which fear is greater? That depends entirely on the person. Now imagine ordinary humans trapped between these pantheons. A Viking warrior enters a Slavic forest seeking glory. At first he laughs at tales of spirits. Then voices emerge from the trees. Companions disappear. Dreams become infected. An old woman offers impossible bargains. The forest shifts every night. Soon the warrior realizes he is not fighting enemies. He is fighting the land itself. Now imagine a Slavic villager witnessing Ragnarok. The sky splits apart. Giants march across burning worlds. Fenrir devours the sun. The oceans rise. The stars vanish. This is not hidden terror. This is cosmic extinction. The villager understands instantly that survival may no longer exist. These mythologies attack fear from opposite directions, and that is why both remain powerful today. Modern fantasy owes enormous debts to Norse mythology. Gods with hammers, world trees, runes, Ragnarok, frost giants. Modern horror owes equally large debts to Slavic folklore. Witches in forests, vampires, haunted spirits, ancient curses. Even modern gaming reflects this divide. Norse-inspired worlds often emphasize combat and destiny. Slavic-inspired worlds emphasize atmosphere and dread. The Witcher series demonstrates this beautifully. Its monsters, curses, and moral ambiguity draw heavily from Slavic traditions. Meanwhile, countless fantasy epics draw directly from Norse cosmology. So which mythology influenced modern culture more? Globally, Norse mythology probably dominates due to preserved texts and modern media. Emotionally, however, Slavic mythology possesses extraordinary haunting power once people discover it. It feels ancient in a different way, less polished, more dangerous, more alive. Now let us examine divine morality. The Norse gods are flawed but often heroic. Thor protects humanity. Tyr sacrifices for justice. Even Odin's manipulations aim partly at preserving cosmic order. Slavic supernatural beings are morally ambiguous. Baba Yaga may help or destroy. Spirits reward respect but punish disrespect brutally. The forest itself does not care about human morality. This ambiguity gives Slavic mythology psychological complexity. You cannot always separate allies from threats. The Norse universe is brutal but understandable. The Slavic universe is mysterious and unstable. Which is more dangerous? Probably the Slavic one. Predictability matters in war, and Slavic mythology thrives on uncertainty. Yet Norse mythology thrives on adaptation through courage. The Einherjar would continue fighting even in impossible circumstances. That relentless determination cannot be underestimated. Now let us compare endgame scenarios. Scenario 1, open battlefield. The Norse side likely dominates. Thor annihilates enemy formations. Odin coordinates divine warfare. The Valkyries control aerial combat. Fenrir devastates massive enemies. Jormungandr poisons landscapes. Scenario 2, prolonged occupation of supernatural wilderness. The Slavic side gains increasing advantage. Invisible spirits attack morale. Shapeshifters infiltrate camps. Witches manipulate minds. Forests become impossible to navigate. The dead refuse to stay dead. Scenario 3, magical warfare. This becomes impossible to predict. Odin, Freya, Baba Yaga, Veles, and countless supernatural beings reshape reality itself. Scenario 4, apocalyptic survival. Here, the Slavic cyclical worldview may ultimately endure longer. Nature regenerates. Spirits return. Life continues. The Norse universe expects destruction. The Slavic universe expects transformation. And that may be the key difference. Norse mythology glorifies the final stand. Slavic mythology glorifies endurance. Now, let us imagine individual matchups in greater detail. Thor versus Perun. The heavens explode with thunder. Mjolnir collides against lightning axes. Mountains crack, rivers boil. Thor charges relentlessly, each strike capable of shattering giants. Perun commands storms vast enough to reshape entire landscapes. The battle lasts for days. Neither retreats. Finally, the skies themselves collapse around them. Winner? Too close to call. Odin versus Baba Yaga. This is not a physical battle. It is a contest of wisdom, deception, prophecy, and ancient magic. Odin sacrifices endlessly for knowledge. Baba Yaga guards primordial mysteries. Each tries to outmaneuver the other through bargains and curses. Perhaps neither wins because both understand that true power lies in secrets. Fenrir versus Koshchei. Pure destruction against impossible immortality. Fenrir tears through armies. Koshchei returns repeatedly unless his hidden death is discovered. Eventually, Fenrir may devour the entire landscape, searching for the source of Koshchei's immortality. But can destruction solve riddles? Not always. Loki versus Veles. This may become the most dangerous confrontation of all. Chaos against underworld cunning. Trickster against shape-shifting lord of hidden realms. They manipulate allies, corrupt enemies, and reshape the battlefield through deception. In another timeline, these two might actually overthrow both pantheons together. Now let us discuss one overlooked aspect: music and oral storytelling. Both mythologies survived through oral tradition before being written down, but Norse mythology eventually gained preservation through sagas and Icelandic texts. Slavic mythology fragmented across regions and villages. This fragmentation creates mystery because no single canon exists. There is no universally fixed Slavic mythology. Instead, there are overlapping traditions, local spirits, evolving legends. This flexibility may actually make Slavic mythology stronger conceptually. A fixed mythology can be mapped. A living folklore system keeps changing. That unpredictability becomes part of its power. Norse mythology resembles an epic saga. Slavic mythology resembles an endless, haunted labyrinth. And perhaps that explains why so many people become fascinated after discovering Slavic folklore. It feels hidden. It feels forbidden. Like entering a dark forest where every path leads somewhere strange. Now consider how each mythology views nature. In Norse mythology, nature is dangerous, but often external. Storms, seas, winter, giants. Humans battle against these forces. In Slavic mythology, nature is spiritually inhabited. The forest has intentions. The river remembers. The house contains spirits. Nature is not merely dangerous, it is conscious. This gives Slavic mythology extraordinary atmosphere. A single abandoned hut in a Slavic forest may feel more terrifying than an entire army of giants, because the fear is intimate, personal, ancient. Now let us return to the original question. Who would win? If we define victory through direct military conquest, the Norse pantheon likely holds advantage. Its gods are heavily war-oriented. Its cosmology revolves around preparation for final battle. Its heroes embrace death fearlessly. Thor alone represents catastrophic combat power. But if we define victory through survival, adaptation, and spiritual endurance, Slavic mythology may prevail. It exists like a living ecosystem of spirits, rituals, monsters, and natural forces. Destroying one part changes nothing. The darkness simply returns elsewhere. And psychologically, Slavic mythology may actually consume invaders over time. The Norse fight enemies. The Slavic world transforms minds. Imagine surviving battle against giants only to become lost forever in enchanted forests. Imagine defeating monsters but slowly forgetting reality itself. That is the true horror of Slavic mythology. It erodes certainty. Meanwhile, Norse mythology burns with tragic glory. It says even doomed warriors can become legends. This is why both mythologies remain unforgettable. One teaches courage, the other teaches respect for the unknown. One confronts upon human sight, the old gods are still fighting.